Let's be honest. Does God exist has to be one of the most asked, least understood questions in human history. It's on bumper stickers, it's in pulpits, it's echoing in your head at 2 a.m. after the prayer fell flat again. But here's the real twist. That question, it assumes way more than it asks. It assumes that whatever you call God is real enough to matter. It assumes action, attention, relevance even. It assumes that existence is enough to justify worship. But let's flip it. Let's say that God does exist, silent, invisible, never showing up. Would it even matter? If the divine is indifferent to suffering, invisible in injustice, mute in every moment you needed it most, what's the difference between that and nothing? So maybe the better question isn't, does God exist? It's, why are we still asking? Now, don't get me wrong. I know the question feels important. It shaped your childhood. It shows up in every hymn, every sermon, every God's got a plan for you speech. It's the question you were told not to question, because doubt, that was the devil's work. But what if pulling on that thread doesn't unravel the meaning of life? It just reveals who's been stitching the story. Today's not about mocking belief. It's about dissecting it, tracing it, asking what happens when we stop treating divine claims like they're above investigation. Because behind the God question isn't just theology, it's psychology, it's power, it's history. And maybe, just maybe, it's time we stop chasing smoke and start naming the fire. Let's talk about why the question fails. You ever notice how asking does God exist feels like asking, is the tooth fairy paying my rent this month? It's a question that feels deep because we've been told it is. But look closer. That question assumes that the concept was ever meaningful enough to deserve verification, that it came from evidence, from sincere inquiry, from something real. But it didn't. It came from pattern-seeking brains in a thunderstorm. It came from fire-lit stories and tribal fears, from agency detection, your brain seeing a rustle in the bushes and assuming it's a predator. Not because it was, but because it could have been. That's where God was born. Not in miracles, in maybes, not in revelation, in reaction. Humans didn't discover gods, we invented them, because fear plus ignorance equals meaning if you say it loud enough. So now we're here centuries later, still treating that speculation like it deserves cross-examination, still pretending the courtroom is full when nobody ever showed up to testify. That question, does God exist, is not a starting point. It's a distraction. Long before Moses allegedly claimed stone tablets, before Jesus supposedly broke bread, before the Quran dropped bars in the desert, there were lightning strikes, predators in the dark, children dying for reasons no one could explain. And in those moments, what did we do? We reached for stories. We projected minds into the unknown. We didn't understand the storm, so we imagined a storm god. Didn't understand death, so we invented a gatekeeper on the other side. And don't get it twisted, this wasn't evil, it was adaptive. When you're trying to survive without science, reason becomes optional and comfort becomes mandatory. Here's the twist though. Those gods didn't evolve from truth. They evolved from terror. Gods didn't descend from heaven, they climbed up out of fear. Now ask yourself, if a belief starts as a survival tactic, does that make it true or just temporarily useful? Because let's be honest, most deities sound less like universal truth and more like emotional life rafts we kept patching up with dogma. And when science starts replacing fear with understanding, the gods didn't disappear, they just got sneakier. Less thunderbolts, more theologies. They just slipped into new language. Less fire from heaven, more personal relationship with Jesus. Less Zeus, more divine purpose. Because the stories didn't stop being mythology, they just got better at branding the fiction. Let's talk about evidence. Because for a belief this big, creator of the universe, judge of souls, eternal arbiter of your afterlife, you'd expect at least a little proof, right? Instead, what do we get? Testimonies, feelings, the reason that we feel. Coincidences. Grandma's cancer went into remission, so Jesus. But try this in any other context. medicine, law, science, and watch how fast that logic falls apart. You can feel like your car runs on prayer all day long, but if the gas tank's empty, you're walking, my friend. Prayer studies, null results. Miracles always vanish under scrutiny. Anecdotes, compelling until every religion has them. So we ask, religion, where are the receipts? Because if you claim the supernatural, you owe the natural a damn explanation. And I just believe it ain't one. So let's address a recent thought experiment I encountered while on the line. The caller asked, if you found a quantum computer on Mars, wouldn't you assume it was designed? Cool story, but let's zoom in. Most people couldn't identify a quantum computer if it was in their backyard. So now we're pretending every human is equally qualified to analyze advanced technology on a planet we've never stepped on with zero context or prior knowledge. That's not logic. That's CSI confirmation bias. And here's what they always skip. You didn't actually know what it was. You just recognized a pattern. And as pattern-seeking machines, we do that all the time. We see faces in the clouds. We hear voices in static. We build meaning out of noise. That's why we invented science, to interrogate our instincts, to separate looks designed from is designed. Because something looking complex doesn't mean it came from a creator. It just means we don't understand it yet. And calling your ignorance proof of God doesn't elevate your belief, it exposes your process. Mystery isn't evidence, it's just the space where truth hasn't been found yet. Now, let's bring in the grown-up tools. Evidentialism. You don't get to believe things just because you want to. You need reasons that actually hold up under pressure. And then also consider Occam's razor. When you've got multiple explanations, the simplest one wins. And spoiler alert, human psychology plus culture plus fear of death explains religion a lot better than invisible sky being wants your obedience. So here's the real kicker. If you need faith to believe it, then it needs you to exist. That's not revelation, that's an imaginary friend. And let's be honest, if your belief crumbles under the question, why do I believe this? That's not faith, that's unexamined loyalty. Quick pause, real talk. If this is hitting something in you and you want to go deeper, connect tighter, or just build something real outside the algorithm, join the Patreon. You get behind the scenes content, daily motivational voice notes, discounts on Windows Shop, and we're about to launch our first all access event. That means live conference calls, real-time community, and yes, face-to-face answers to the questions that maybe keep you up at night. And the best part, patrons can message me directly. And let me be clear, I prioritize my patron chats. Out of every platform I'm on, those are the conversations I show up for first. So if you've ever wanted to take this from content to community, now's the time. The links are in the description. Now, let's jump back into this conversation because this is where it gets deep. Let's talk about two favorite plays in the belief without evidence playbook. Number one, everyone has faith in something, even science. That's the Jordan Peterson sleight of hand. Turn anything, logic, love, your morning coffee into faith, and suddenly everyone's a theist. But that ain't theology. That's branding. Let's be clear, having faith in something doesn't mean believing in anything. The idea of faith predates God's. It was just a word for trust, confidence, repetition that produced results. What religion did was hijack it, turned it from I trust this because it works into I believe this because I was told to. So worshiping money, that's capitalism. Having faith your friend won't flake, that's a track record. But calling that religious faith is like calling a seatbelt a security system from heaven. It's dishonest, it's imprecise, and it's designed to make you question your own sanity for using reason. Another one is you can't disprove God, so belief is justified. Okay, and I can't disprove an invisible unicorn running the IRS, but yet here we are. This isn't an argument, it's a dare, and a lazy one at that. It's the logical equivalent of you can't say I'm wrong, so I must be right. But think about it. If I told you there's a ghost in your refrigerator that only shows up when no one's looking, would you build a worldview around it? Would you teach your kids to obey it? Would you call it truth? Not being able to disprove something isn't evidence for it. It just means that the claim is built to be untouchable, and untouchable isn't the same as true, but it is virtually the same as non-existent. The burden of proof doesn't reverse just because you wrap your claim in spirituality. If the best thing your belief has going for it is that no one's disproven it, then you're not defending faith, you're fighting the fog. Belief without receipts doesn't just sit quietly in a pew. It moves votes, it erases rights, it protects abusers with Bible verses and spiritual authority. Let's stop pretending this is just a thought experiment. Does God exist has been used to justify slavery, war, colonization, conversion therapy, and the quiet erasure of critical thought in living rooms and classrooms across the world. You want to see the damage? Look at evangelical politics. Look at Hindu nationalism. Look at women told their pain is God's plan. Look at kids taught to hate their own identity because that's not God. When belief is built on fear, it becomes control. When faith is treated as virtue without evidence, accountability evaporates. Because if your suffering is sacred, then your oppressor gets to call themselves holy. This is why the question matters, not because we're trying to win a debate, but because people are bleeding under answers they were never allowed to question. We've spent centuries asking, does God exist? Built cathedrals on it, waged wars over it, destroyed families and identities in the name of it. But if we're honest, we've been asking the wrong question. Because if that God does exist and still chooses silence and suffering, still watches war, genocide, abuse without lifting a divine finger, then what difference does that existence actually make? You don't pray to gravity, you don't build churches to oxygen, you breathe it, you live in it, you test it because it's there. So maybe the better question isn't, does God exist? Maybe it's, why would it matter if it did? What's the point of a God who hides behind mystery and trauma? Why worship what doesn't show up? And maybe deeper than all of that, maybe the question we're really afraid to ask is, what happens if there's no one coming? No sky parent, no cosmic judge, no backup plan, just us. Would that break you or would that free you? Because the moment we stop chasing gods that ghost us, we start finding each other. And that's holy enough for me. Before you go, if you're ready to take this beyond thought and into transformation, I want to invite you into something real. Over at Window Shop, we've been building for folks like you, people deconstructing faith and intentionally reconstructing life. We now have digital study guides designed to walk you through every layer, historical, psychological, theological, so you're not just breaking away, you're also building something new. Take, for example, When Did Christianity Become Truth? It's a guide that unpacks the rise of Christianity through empire, politics, forgery, and power, not myths or miracles. Whether you're going solo or leading a group, this is the kind of stuff that sparks real conversation and builds real community. And we're not stopping there. We're also developing deconstruction courses to accompany these guides, tools you can use on your own or within a group to deepen every layer of questioning and reconstruction. So if you've been asking, what's next? This might be it. Head to the link below to check out the digital study guides and see what's coming, and find a resource that moves beyond non-belief into active rebuilding. Because deconstruction doesn't end with doubt, it ends with direction. And as always, thank you for joining me in this conversation today. Until next time, keep rising.